What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Speedway Soccer. I am your host tonight and pretty much every night these days. My name is Davey Shepard at Davey T. Shep on Twitter. I'm joined tonight by OGs Ben Wright, Jonathan Slape. Guys, how are we doing tonight?
Doing well, man. We're 2 days out, or 1 day out from MLS, and 2 days out for game day.
This has been. I don't think this is an exaggeration. This has been the longest offseason in history. I'm ready for it to be back.
Yeah, I mean, MLS has long off seasons anyway, right? And we went pretty deep into the playoffs. I can't imagine how bad this would have been if you were, like another expansion side, like maybe an Inter Miami or something that did not go quite so deep, or Cincinnati.
Wow. We're starting this early.
Topical tonight, because this is the game week 1 preview episode. We're going to talk through FC Cincinnati. We got Tyler Snipes on with us, who, in my opinion, one of the more refined MLS Twitter follows you'll see on Twitter. So go ahead and follow him. We're going to plug him here in just a minute. But some other big news, instead of, boxing out every fan in the world like they did with the preseason, Nashville SC decided to let people have a little peek at the inside of the stadium, the new soccer stadium going into the fairgrounds today. And our boy Ben Wright was there. So, Ben, why don't you break it down a little bit for us, what it was like to be there?
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, you walk down. We were on the field level, or what will be the field. I mean, it was just gravel at this point. But you walk down, and I was immediately just struck at how huge it is. I mean, 30,000, it's going to be the biggest soccer-specific stadium in the U.S. and Canada, but I don't think I realized just how big that would actually be until I was there, and it's just massive. They have the south end almost complete. They're just finishing out the last bit of the frame, and then they're going to start the canopy up here in the next month or so. But really, they said all the steel work should be complete here in the next couple months. The roof should be up by July. And then at that point, it's just detail work. But yeah, going really well. Construction's on schedule. Apparently the field, the grass is already being grown in Georgia, which I didn't realize is a thing. But yeah, it looked great.
Are you serious about that? They're growing the
grass right now in Georgia, and they're going to transport it here. And apparently it's expensive. Like a big chunk of the cost is the actual playing surface. But yeah, I was surprised at how quickly it's come along. And yeah, it's just exciting. It got me really excited to actually see a game there. You can tell that it's a soccer stadium, designed for soccer. And there's not going to be a bad seat in the house.
Well, thanks for hooking us up with the pictures today, Ben. For those of us who could not be there, it kind of made us feel like we were, so we appreciate that. I know it was loved on Twitter, and I'm sure everybody's digging it right now, checking out those pictures that Andy Boy put up. Andy Boy is on the ones and twos for us, producing tonight's episode. And if he had a mic right now, I'm sure he'd be telling us how good Georgia grass is or something like that. So I'm kind of glad he doesn't have a microphone. So I'm pretty stoked on that. Listen, tonight's episode, guys, we're going to kind of give you the full rundown. Josh Young, I see you Slape with that Phil Foden fade. Oh, I love it.
Oh, man, that is perfect.
Phil Foden. Big week for Phil Foden. Big week for Jonathan Slape. I like it.
What a banger. I hate Manchester City with a passion, and that was a gorgeous goal.
And honestly, I think the announcers did him a discredit, right? They're like, oh, yeah, keeper should have said, dude, he hit it so hard. Come on. You did him a disservice on that goal. It was an absolute banger.
I was watching on my phone. I thought it glitched, the stream glitched and just skipped a couple seconds from when it left his foot to when it hit the net. He hit that hard.
We're not going to talk about how I cursed the rest of the league and allowed Phil Foden to take it over. But just if you're out there listening, know that me rooting against Phil Foden is the reason why he is as good as he is today. So I'm going to take full credit for that and just keep it rolling along. Listen, tonight's episode, we had presser today plus minus 2 days from game day with Dax McCarty and Dan Lovitz. We've got FC Cincinnati preview with Tyler Snipes. And then probably the title of the episode, right? You can call me Al. We got Alistar Johnston in with us tonight. Ben and I sat down with him yesterday afternoon and had an awesome interview. It's going to be really, really good listen. That's coming up here in about 15 or 20 minutes, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We got Will Bowling in the house. Is Arsenal the biggest club? Is Arsenal the biggest club?
Don't even read that. Don't even
beating Slavia Prague.
I'm
going to ask you how big they are after how the coach who got fired beats them in the next round. We'll revisit that on Nashville Soccer Show next week. Okay, we'll chime in. Nashville SC preview. We're going to talk about the starting 11 that we expect to see this weekend. Any injuries? What do we have going on? We'll see injury report tomorrow, but we'll kind of guess it out as best as we can and see who's going on top. Who's going to start center forward? To me, that's the story of the season as we start out. So let's do it tonight. Andy, why don't you introduce our boy for us, Tyler Snipes, at Snipes Tyler on Twitter. Go follow him now if you haven't yet. Normally, I ask people if I'm pronouncing their name right. I assume it's not Snipes. I think it's Snipes. I think I had this one good to go. Tyler Snipes, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, it is so good to talk to you guys today and actually see you as more than Twitter avatars. We have so much fun on the internet, and I can't believe this is the first time we've gotten to speak. So thank you, boys.
Look, let's get this out of the way. Like 1:30 for hot dogs before the game Saturday, something like that.
Hey, man, I've already started the party. I don't know if you're familiar with the Cincinnati Coney.
Oh, man.
I like it. Tyler came prepared. We're going to do a hot dog date. Tyler and I, nobody else is invited. Hot dog date Saturday before the game. And we might live tweet it or something. So you'll see later on. Tyler's covering MLS over at SBIsoccer.com. Spends a lot of his time talking FC Cincinnati, an old rival of Nashville Soccer Club from the USL days. And, I think last year the story between these two fan groups was, why in the hell are these two teams not playing each other? MLS did us a service this year. They set it up in the first game of the season. It's going to be a ton of fun. I think the only thing that could have made it even better is if FC Cincinnati Stadium was totally finished and the home game took place there, right? But here we are. It's in Nissan Stadium. It's going to be a blast. And I think it's actually going to be a pretty competitive soccer game. And let's just get right into it. So FC Cincinnati played more preseason games than Nashville. You've seen a little bit. You've talked with their coaching staff. What are you expecting for this club, Tyler, going into their third campaign in MLS?
Yeah, I think that it's understandably really hard to assess with all the newcomers at really key positions, but I do think you're going to be surprised. For anybody who really hasn't been following the story, there's been some major headlining additions, and my hot take to kind of lead us into it is I think that they are confidently out of the cellar in the East.
So, I mean, I feel like this kind of went under the radar a bit, but they were actually a fairly decent defensive side last season. I think you saw kind of Jopstam get in there, and I know he didn't have a ton to work with, but you could kind of see him start to implement his system. Just how do you expect these newcomers to fit into his system? And I mean, for lack of a better term, what do you expect that system to be?
Yeah, over and over again, the team's been really good about letting us get to talk to everyone, and something that you've heard consistently from everyone is total football. I'm not a complete expert when it comes to tactics, but I know that that's closely associated with the Dutch system that Jaap and a lot of the people involved with the team are familiar with, and it's going to be really just line by line, going by committee. And to your point about the defense, there's actually Jaap's a defensive guy. Obviously, we know the resume there, but there's not a ton of continuity there, believe it or not. The addition of Ronald Matarrita on the left, he's somebody who's not going to have pause about going forward. Joe Zhao playing as a right back is a really fascinating thing. The experiment started last year, but he, after spending so much time in the front part of the field for his career, he's not going to have any pause about going forward either. So it's really going to require a lot of cover for those center backs in that holding midfield. And I think you're going to see something interesting. I don't know what it is, but I think that it's going to be, again, I'm not a soccer expert, but my prediction is going to be it's going to be more of a blitz and everybody just filling those holes as the game changes, rather than a team that's going to draw you into a trance like a traditional defensive team would, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know last year one of the other things that was, aside from the defenses, was always offense and scoring and who's going to score goals. And we know that they've gone out and signed a guy like Brenner from Brazil, and then also Lucho Acosta. How do you expect all two of them, and how do you expect the offense to come together in this first week?
Yeah, the indications are looking good. I mean, if you take the players at their word, in the preseason, nobody has to be honest, obviously, but it seems that Brenner and Acosta really know that they're, what their roles are. They're expected to be the stars of the show and really change the history of FC Cincinnati. They seem to have a really good personal connection. And you really can't talk about one without talking about the other because they're going to rely on each other so much for their success. So I think when you look at Lucho, he's going to be the quarterback. I mean, he's going to be the one who keeps the engine on. And if Brenner lives up to what he's advertised to be, he's going to be that true target man that you are just not worried about. When he walks into the box with the goal, he seems to be that finisher that this team has just needed so desperately. There's been a merry-go-round of strikers, but there's never been an above-average playmaker. And I think that is the plan. That's obviously where the investment is. So now it's just going to be about, can they keep the ball? Can their best laid plans come to fruition?
Have you got a sense, Lucho Acosta is a guy that is no stranger to this league, but, went to Atlas and did struggle a little bit to score goals. Have you got a sense about, how he's looking forward to getting back into the league? Does he feel like he'll be able to, hit the ground running, as he may be new to this team, but is not new to this league?
Yeah, he loves it. He wanted to come back. He has spoken really, really passionately about what the opportunity means to him and how good it feels to be prioritized again. Whereas I don't know this is a fact. I didn't really go into this with him, but I had a really good conversation with him last week. It's very clear that he wasn't prioritized at Atlas. He was just kind of like another body on the squad. And here he is going to be, that guy. He's going to have that responsibility. They're going to want him to play every game. The thing that just concerns me, though, when you point out the Atlas experience, is that he had, I think, over 20 appearances, and he came over in kind of a mid-season situation and then joined this preseason. I asked Jaap Stam today if that concerns him, if he's ready for that workload, if he's had adequate rest. And Jaap said that he expects him to start every game, and it made it sound like he was fresh as a daisy. But I can't help but think that there will be some proactive rotation. And if FC Cincinnati's in, a close game, Lucho might be one of those guys, especially early in the season, that might have to leave some pretty high leverage situations,
Yeah.
So I think one of the big storylines last season was obviously Jurgen Kadia, who was kind of assigned to be the guy. And I mean, I don't want to just Cincinnati, but I think it's fair to say that he was kind of a bust, at least last year. He's still with the squad. It seems like he's been pushed out to the wing a little bit, which maybe he might be a little bit more comfortable there. But what are you expecting from him this season? How do you think he's going to fit with a guy like Brenner?
Yeah, that's been the preseason. We only got to see one game, but the words we've heard about it and from the horse's mouth himself, Jurgen, confirmed that he is going to be on that left wing. It's, as you said, it's not a reinvention for him, as outsiders, might see it as. He was a bust. He was a DP striker on loan, and that's a weird situation to be in 2020, coming over and then just having life kind of stop. But at the end of the day, for a DP newcomer, he had one goal in his debut and then another penalty goal in the MLS's back tournament. There's just got to be more production. So they bring in Brenner. You're right. He did get pushed aside, and, they brought in another DP at his position. His loan ends in the summer. So as weird of a situation as that is, the pressure is really on him to perform, because even if he excels and he has a wonderful year just with the MLS roster spots, there's no guarantee that FC Cincinnati is going to be able to keep him. But I think, as you guys have seen a lot, it just happens all over the league. If you can't perform or keep your job on an MLS team and you just kind of get, told to go, that puts him in a weird situation. So for his sake, he really has to perform. And then obviously the team must benefit from that, if the numbers are there this year.
I think Nashville SC fans out there can relate to the idea of a DP striker being on loan, because that's what we've got in Yonder Cadiz here this season. And 10 games before Nashville SC has to make a decision if they're pulling the trigger on that or not. So it's kind of interesting how similar those situations are. So we talked a little bit about the addition of Acosta in the midfield. We haven't talked about the subtraction of Amaya from the midfield. I think a guy who was in a lot of ways an 8, but borderline like a 6, a real ball winner. Went out there and did a lot of the things that other guys don't do. It's being replaced by a guy who we know likes to get forward. Do you see FC Cincinnati having an issue being run through the middle, particularly early in the season against a team like Nashville, who has such a strong central spine?
I think Nashville is just going to give them problems because of the continuity. Just pound for pound, I like Nashville's team a little bit better, especially just in this first matchup. But looking beyond that, Camo Makocho had a really solid showing in his debut season. He was a July newcomer. There's a lot of confidence there. Harris Medunjanin also, he is just like, he's got a god tier workload and he's able to be productive in such an old age, but he just kind of recently came out and all but said he's going to be reduced to a supporting role. And Yuya Kubo is going to be reinventing himself as a central midfielder. So there's an experiment there. It's really hard to confidently assess, but to get into the juicy juice about Amaya, I think it is a case of just addition by subtraction in that way. For this team and the fresh air around it, you can't have someone who doesn't want to be there. He clearly didn't. He tried to negotiate in public. He didn't get what he wanted to go back to California. I think everybody wishes him well. We all know he's a talented player. As you said, he shows a bunch of different speeds, and under the right direction, he can really be whatever he wants. So I think they might be better without him, as ridiculous as that might sound like as a sentence on the internet.
So, I mean, obviously these two teams have history, which is a little bit weird to say for an expansion team. But they have history going back to 2018 in USL. It played each other really tight every time they met. It's the first time meeting in MLS. So what's kind of the attitude in the Cincinnati fan base? How are fans up there thinking about this game, getting ready for it? And yeah, what's just the general vibe?
I mean, you guys see it on Twitter as much as I do. These fan bases have no problem taking the shots at it, and there's real passion there because Nashville was obviously granted that MLS destination before FC Cincinnati was, despite all of the kind of roller coaster type of things that were going on with FC Cincinnati being jerked around with that expansion process a bit. So naturally, that's going to be there. And then naturally, just two new teams, and now Nashville seems like permanently residing in the Eastern Conference. It's natural for passion. I haven't heard any of the players talk about it. I don't know about on the Nashville side, but I know on FC Cincinnati's side, there's no more USL players who really remember that or would have like heart in that. But I think Nashville fans, like the moment something pops off on Saturday night, it's not going to take much to really get the fans involved and create a hostile environment on week one. And then obviously in that reverse fixture, and you guys see how crazy FC Cincinnati Twitter can be. It's just that wild in the stands. Like FC Cincinnati crowds really are like nothing else I've seen. So the general vibe is just like it's to not upset the Pablo Mauers of the world, but it's the calm before the storm. Like it's just like I truly don't know how insane it's going to be, but I do think it has the potential to be a prominent rivalry.
No, yeah, I think you're exactly right, and to me, it's a lot of these things are. It seems somewhat forced. To me, the idea that Atlanta and Nashville are going to be rivals, at least on the surface, seems a little bit forced. Now, the game's got pretty chippy out there, and I think that can be built. FC Cincinnati, it's super organic. From day one, the idea that Nashville got that spot before FC Cincinnati, they just couldn't handle it up there. And then Nashville, on the other hand, like it was kind of – leaning into that a little bit, right? Like, yeah, come on and hate us. That's fine. But then on the other hand, went out in pretty good results. And I mean, ultimately at the MLS level have been the better side. So to me, I think it's a really organic rivalry. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Chris Hull chimes in with Big Bird. And for anybody from FCC who's turning in right now, they're going to love that. One of the better moments at the USL days. He says, are there really no USL players left on FCC? You just confirmed that. Yeah, Tyler?
Nary a trace.
There you go. So, I mean, LaGrasse and Washington would be the guys. Am I missing anybody else, Ben?
No, yeah, Rios wasn't there until.
But yeah, Rios wasn't there until the next year, and then Alan Wynn no longer on the roster, right? So yeah, that's it as far as our guys go.
Matt Pickens on the staff, but yeah,
Pickens on the coaching staff. There you go. Yeah, so those are the guys left, and we're going to have a little interview with Alistar Johnston come up here in just about 4 or 5 minutes. But he mentioned it himself. He's heard a lot about how this is a rivalry from guys on the staff and how this game means a lot. So we're excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, I know. So looking at going on, at the season, you said that you felt confidently that Cincinnati is out of the cellar. Kind of looking ahead past this game, I know we're going to see Cincinnati 2 more times, but how do you see the season progressing for Cincinnati? What expectations do you see from this team with how they're going to perform?
Yeah, and let me tack on to that from Slape. Are you talking out of the cellar just because Montreal is going to be in the cellar, or like in contention for a playoff spot out of the cellar?
If it's on me, I would say like ceiling must be 6th, just the war of attrition that always is there in the East. I think I wouldn't bet with my money, your money, or anybody else's money that 6th is, something that's an advisable thing to say. I think realistically though, like 6th through 12th, and I think 8th or 9th is kind of what you're looking at. But it's just one of those things, if Lucho performs and Brenner is like a Joseph Martinez type, the possibilities are really endless. And I'm sure you guys are having just as much fun as I am, like making predictions in these last few weeks. But I think just getting in the conversation for a playoff spot, getting a little bit of success, winning some more games, and then just assessing what the needs are when you look at those losses. There's clearly room for a headlining center back. That's a piece of business that they tried to accomplish. It didn't get done. The team knows that they need another bona fide starter, and they also need just some more quality depth there. The midfield, as you said, there's real questions about who's going to start. And then when you look at the supporting cast, there's fair questions there. The attack has real firepower. If Lucho does the thing, pulls the strings, you've got Jurgen over there knowing that you're just confident in his experience. You've got Brenner. He's just got to live up to his expectations. And then on the right wing, there's a really exciting youngster that we don't talk enough about named Alvaro Barreal. He's going to be something to watch too, but it's just one of those things. If they're bunkering and just getting hammered like it historically has been, it's going to be hard to see them coming out of the cellar. But as you said, Davey, Montreal is going to be the worst, and somebody always has to be the worst. So thank God on paper it's not FC Cincinnati for once. But I think that obviously there's room for improvement, but I think that they've done the work to get in the conversation. And if they find themselves in 8th place and miss the playoffs by the point, like, it'll be heartbreaking, but it'll also be, I don't know, just confirmation that the change is happening. And yeah, I think Yop might actually be kind of working for his job and like that long-term security too, because you already spent the money and now it's just going to come down to, okay, your plan didn't work. Is there a future with it?
All right, last one, and we'll close it up. We're not going to ask you for a score prediction, but can Cincinnati come down and get a point out of this match on Saturday?
Ooh. Can they? Sure. I mean, anything can happen, right? I like the continuity in Nashville, but here's the thing. Like, I've spent a lot of time observing the Nashville world. I don't know that offense is, going to be in mid-season form. And obviously, as you said, that the preseason's been really hard to get the good. And
you've watched them as much as we have, so
which is zero.
Yeah. So that kind of that front line, I mean, it's got teeth. If it's Leal, Cadiz, and Moyle, you know what I mean? Like, this Nashville wasn't that great at scoring goals last year. They were exceptional defensively. FC Cincinnati comes in with that blitz. I mean, anything can happen, but I think Nashville's going to have more poise and just run the game. And if that means a scoreless draw, that means a scoreless draw. So yeah, they can take a point, but I'm guessing Nashville just with veteran moxie can find the goal and hold on to it,
Tyler, we appreciate your time, man. Tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter and find your written content.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. My name is Tyler Snipes, if we didn't say that enough. I'm sorry. On Twitter, I'm at Snipes Tyler. You can read me at sbisoccer.com, where the whole staff, we just did season previews for all the teams in the league. We've got these fun staff predictions lists coming out. We just did power rankings, and we bit each other's heads off arguing about them. So really just a treat to be working with those guys, and it's a great site. So always stocked with good stuff. Check us out. Follow along on the journey. I'll be heading to Nissan Stadium on Saturday. I'll be eating hot dogs with the crew here. So if anybody in Nashville's around the game, definitely say hello.
We appreciate it, man. Looking forward to Saturday. It's going to be a blast. Just ready for the season to kick off. It's the longest off season ever. We're ready to do it. We are coming back here right on the other side of the break. Alistar Johnston, starting right back, Nashville Soccer Club, starting right back, Canadian national team, sits down with me and Ben to chat about preseason and what he's looking forward to this season. Really, really good guy. Really, really good interview. Stay tuned and check that out. He'll be right up on Speedway Soccer.
Get your pen and paper ready. It's time for another edition of The Flex.
Into another episode of Speedway Soccer. Game week 1 match day preview. Davey Shepard and Ben right here with starting right back for Nashville Soccer Club, Alistar Johnston. Alistar, thanks so much for joining us today, bro. How are you, man?
Very good, Davey. Thanks for having me, boys. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. And listen, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. You have had like a poppin' couple of weeks, man. It's been rolling along for you. So we caught you at a good time. It's always good to talk to somebody when things are up, So I think that'll be fun for us, but fun for you as well. So why don't we start with this? Because you kind of came in during what I'm describing in a piece that I have coming out this week as the weirdest year on human record. You came into MLS. Yep. And being a rookie has got to be hard no matter what, right? But what was it like being a rookie last year with that condensed schedule, with playing the same 3 or 4 teams over and over again? What was all of that like?
To a degree, I think it may have helped, especially as a rookie. When you come in, you want things to be, because you say, as simple as possible. And to some degree, the pandemic kind of limited the things that we were able to do in terms of opposition we were playing. Amount of travel and all these different things. So in some ways, it kind of made it easier. I think the hardest part for us rookies is just having that bit of normalcy you're used to having your family at games. You used to be able to see friends and family. And for me, being especially international, it was tough. Obviously, Canadian border was super closed, still is, unfortunately. So not being able to see my family after a game or getting them to come out to any of those huge games, in Nashville, where we had 60,000 fans in the stands and stuff like that was a bit of a bummer. And I think that was kind of one of the hardest parts, especially as a rookie, when, I did break into the starting 11, and it was a pretty cool moment for my family, especially. So I know my dad was super bummed not to be able to come out to any of the games, but just going on the point about the pandemic, though, it did kind of make things easier to some degrees. That, you kind of got used to your opponents that you're playing against, your local opponents, as we say. Even though in North America, a local opponent being a 6-hour drive is a rivalry, it's still one you got to wrap your mind around a little bit. But yeah, you kind of got used to what your opponents were doing, and I think that's a good thing, especially as a young guy, to really kind of ease your way into the league. And another big one was having a shortened schedule. I think also helped. And this year, I'm kind of really getting the first taste of 30+ games, and then a U.S. Open Cup hopefully for us. So lots of games like that, and also now international football. So I think it was the baby step, rookie year part 1 to a degree. Was it ideal? No, it wasn't ideal for anyone. I guess you could say that for sure. But at the same time, I think as rookies in the league, a lot of us took advantage of, just how the situation was and to really try to just make the most of it.
So you got your first minutes for Nashville in August, and then fast forward to March, April, you're playing for the Canadian national team in World Cup qualifiers. What's the thought process like for you in that, just going pretty quickly up the ranks in terms of draft, professional debut, international debut?
Yeah, so for me, it's always been with Canada's, it's one of those ones that there's always been aspirations as a kid growing up that was, one of the end goals, something that really was something that I wanted to achieve, was to put on that red jersey. But for me, once I got here and got drafted and and earn my contract. It was all just about, hey, like I know if I get my chance, I'm going to make the most of it. And I used that pandemic and that shutdown to really, just build confidence in myself and build trust in the coaching staff in me, because that's the biggest thing I think with especially with Gary Smith and how we play in terms of our defensive mindset. It's not even necessarily that we were a super defensive team to a degree. It's more just the mindset and the buy-in that you need to have for a young player to walk in there, especially as a defender. You need to know, like, hey, we're not conceding a goal. Like, we're coming out, like, our mindset is we're getting a clean sheet every single time we go out there. So in order to put a young guy out there, you need to believe that they can live up to that task. So those couple months that we were just doing individual stuff and doing inter squads and stuff like that, it really was a great opportunity for me to prove to them that, I can't hack it at this level. I can't handle it. And that was something that's really important to me. And I always knew with Canada is I looked at that squad and tell you what, there are some unbelievable talents coming through from Fonzo Davies, Jonathan David. You look overseas and just some big names, Atiba Hutchinson as well, just a legend. And it's really cool. It's an exciting group. So it's one of those ones like, did I really want to be a part of it? Of course. Was I nervous that I wasn't going to be good enough? Of course as well. But it was one of those ones with Nashville. I said, if I can really create just a spot where, I can provide a job and a security at that right back spot and maybe nail down that position for myself, that, if I was playing well enough, I know that Canada was going to come calling. And that was something that was a super exciting prospect for me. But it was one of those ones, again, I just tried to keep out of the forefront of my mind. It was really just focusing on Nashville. And then I knew if, I play well with Nashville, good things will happen. And luckily enough, it was crazy once John Herdman reached out to me in about October or September of last year. And it really kind of clicks then at that point. I just remember telling my dad, my brothers, and my mom as well, and them just being over the moon. They're like, holy crap, like it's been a crazy 12 months for me, just from a pandemic and everything. But in terms of a crazy 12 months in soccer, it has been just a huge roller coaster. But at the end of the day, it's been definitely an upward trajectory, which is everything that I could have wished for.
So you mentioned Gary just a few minutes ago, and I think what we try to say is I don't necessarily view it as defensive soccer all of the time either, but it's certainly extremely organized soccer. So what's it been like for you playing inside of that system, and maybe one or two things that you've learned from Gary specifically that you think have helped take your game to the next level?
Yeah, no, playing for Gary it's been something different compared to what I was used to in college. And I think it was the perfect step for me as a first-year pro to come into, especially as a young defender, is that, at the end of the day, what we make our money doing as defenders is defending. It's keeping clean sheets. And as much as I want to be an attacking right back, what gets you on the team sheet is the fact that you can defend 1v1. You can defend that back post. And obviously being beside a guy like Walker Zimmerman definitely makes my life a lot easier, and having Joe behind me and all of that. But yeah, that was something that we really nailed on and was going to be our identity. I think when we came into the league and we looked around, obviously the easy comparison is going to be us and Miami being the two expansion teams coming in. And you're looking at the signings they're making, you're going, okay, here we go. They're going for the big name, the splash signings. And you look at us, you go, we're going to kind of embrace this city a bit more hardworking, not as much flash necessarily to that degree. And I think we really kind of bought into that culture. And I have to give Gary a ton of credit, is that, every single team would want to play like us. There's a reason why teams, we watched Atletico Madrid all preseason last year. But you look at that, you go, why don't more teams try and do Atletico Madrid do? Like, why aren't teams doing that? The reason is that there's not a ton of Diego Simeones in the world, managers like that who can get their players to buy in to that physical and just mental demand of defending. And it starts at the front. And I think we have to give a lot of credit to that front line and that midfield line. And I know they took a little bit of heat and some stick throughout the year for maybe not scoring as much as they would have liked. But I think if you really break down the tape, just the amount of defensive work that those guys are doing. And I always look at it. It was a funny one when I saw total meters covered per 90, and Alex Moyle is leading the league.
Yeah.
I think our team, to every single player that's on that field, is so bought in to that physical grind and that defensive mentality that we are a super tough team to break down. And for me, coming in as a rookie, that's perfect to set that. Where I came from Wake Forest, where we're used to having 70% of the ball, and I'm a fullback, but realistically, I'm just an inverted winger. Having fun out there, just really enjoying getting into attacking spots. So it was perfect for me as a first-year fullback to really just learn the ins and outs of the game. And then again, Gary's been great with that, with the system in terms of teaching me things, and and really letting me develop my game. But I think I also have to give a ton of credit to just the guys I was alongside. I mean, I think Dan Lovitz, I try to praise him as much as I can whenever I'm on a podcast or anything like this, is that he's been the best tool I've had since I've become a pro in terms of just learning the game. Because, you don't often meet a fullbacks coach. I think Steve Guppy's as close as I got to it, and he was a wing back, is as good as you're going to get in terms of him defending. I mean, him's telling me his best defensive advice to me is like, Alistar, when you go out to defend a guy, just make noises. It'll put fear in his eyes. So I'm going, okay, that's the best defensive advice you get from Gups. So, learning from guys like Lovitz who have been in this league and have done it and have played for the U.S. men's national team, and just breaking down game film and going over things with him has been just huge for me. So I think from the coaching staff to just the older players in this team, they've made this transition super easy for me. And I think it was just a perfect fit. And that's why on draft day, when I heard that I was going to Nashville, man, I was over the moon, just super excited to get started. And it's been a great fit so far for me, for sure.
Man, that's awesome. So kind of looking at year 2, what are maybe some challenges that you're anticipating? And then what are kind of on the flip side, what are some areas that you specifically want to develop your game and kind of take it to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, challenges now is that the cat's kind of out of the bag in terms of, Nashville is for real. Teams aren't going in there, I don't think, anymore, going, okay, expansion team, haven't scored a ton. We'll find a way to break these guys down, and then coming off that field exhausted, losing a 1-0 or something, and going, man, this national team is going to fight tooth and nail. So I think, that's a good thing and a bad thing for us, is that now we have to evolve, take that next step. Obviously, that identity is going to remain intact. And I think that's kudos to this coaching staff, is that is our identity. So yeah, but it's going to have to be a challenge, is that, we're going to have to expect teams to now be ready for the fact that they know what to expect from us. So that's going to be a big one. And for me, just personally, and I know me and Dan have talked about it, Lovitz, is just that what can we provide? Can we provide some more from the fullback area? I think we're very solid in terms of our 1v1 defending that back stick, which is super important. But at the same time, I mean, I watch this guy in training all the time, and the things he can do with the ball is second to none. His delivery, his service, all of this, just one of the top guys in the league in terms of that kind of stuff. And we know it's like, hey, I've always fancied myself as a good crosser of the ball, and someone who, maybe I'm not going to take guys on with the dribble, but someone who will make space with my running and my ability to run for 90 minutes, that, we can create some things on both the right and left side in terms of overlaps and just coming late and providing that extra number from the fullback position. And let's get some more assists. Let's create some more attacks through us. We can be a big part of that. And I think when you have guys like Godoy and Dax sitting in front, and Brian Anunga, you have that structure where it allows us fullbacks to really push on. And I think as a first year, we really focused on, just the defending first aspect. And I don't think that's wrong. I think that's a perfect start, especially for an expansion team. But now it's like, how are we going to evolve? And I think that evolution comes through us fullbacks as well. Is, let's take that next step offensively and let's create some more things. I mean, I look back on my stat line. I think I had 0 goals, 1 assist. It's like, I feel like I could have more. And that's going to be the push, is that stats aren't necessarily my driving force, but at the same time, it's how can I contribute not only defensively, but now offensively and in possession, so that we become a team that's more dangerous and more threatening on counterattacks and in possession against these other teams. So that's kind of the big things for this coming year for myself and the team that I see it as. But I'll tell you what, this group, it's been exciting to be a part of this preseason. We didn't have a ton of change, roster turnover, which was good. It's a great group of guys. We all enjoy coming into work every day, if you can call it work. And I know everyone's super excited for the Cincinnati game. It's about time we got to play them. My goodness. I mean, all I've been hearing since I got here is that Cincinnati's our huge rival. Didn't book us once. So this will be a fun one for sure on April 17th.
Yeah, opening day is a good way to make up for it for sure, though. So that'll be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. You talked about playing with Alex, and that right flank was just so dynamic last year between you two working back and forth both ways up and down the pitch. And you mentioned roster turnover. One of the new guys is Rodrigo, who's come into the lineup. Much to the chagrin of guys like me and Ben, we haven't been able to see you play yet. What's it like playing with Rodrigo? What's a little taste that you can give fans out there of what his style of play is like and what he's like to play with on the field?
Rodrigo's a super exciting one. Again, another super young guy. Some people said, I remember, because I first came in when I came into preseason, some guys been training with him, and I was like, all right, what's he like? Is he similar to Randall? What's he kind of like? And everyone's like, sort of when they play together, they're unbelievable together. They're just kind of on the same wavelength. So I was interested. I thought it was maybe going to be a Randall 2.0, but once I got here and I've been training with him, he is a completely different player. He's his own guy. I'll tell you what, I think the fans are going to be super excited just watching him and just his desire and love for the badge. I've never seen a winger. If he loses it or anything, you know what's coming. He's sprinting at 100 miles an hour to win it back. He'll be at right back, and he's overlapping you defensively, tracking a guy. You're like, what's going on? He's like, no, I'm winning this ball back. So he's also made me work on my Spanish a little bit in terms of getting him to press and all of that stuff, just getting communication on point. But I'll tell you what, he's an exciting player. Another guy who just, again, the effort is just completely there. Super direct. I'd say he's one of those guys that when he gets it, he wants to make something happen, wants to get downhill. And we love that kind of player, especially with how our system works. If we are defending a little deep and we can hit guys on counterattacks and stuff, he'll be a great fit. I'm excited to see his development. At the same time, he's really young. I know that the transition to this league isn't necessarily the easiest. And I know the coaching staff's going to work him in pretty well. I know Steve Guppy's been working with him a lot, especially with his 1v1 stuff. I'll tell you what, he is a quick dude to defend, man. When he comes downhill at you, it's nerve-wracking because he's not one of those guys that's ever like, he gets it, indecisive. He knows, like, he gets it, he wants to go at you. And for me as a defender, those are the guys you probably fear the most because it's like, it doesn't matter if you stop this guy to pass 10 times. He gets it again, he's gone. He's got that short-term memory, and he's driving at you again. So I'm excited. He seems super driven, and I think Nashville fans will fall in love with him once he gets his chance.
Good to hear.
Out there at Nissan. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we just got a couple more for you here before we let you get out of here. But you obviously we talked about it earlier, you made your debut for Canada. How has that been kind of we know the preseason has not been ideal for anybody, especially with a lot of canceled matches. How do you feel having 2 competitive matches under your belt going into the season?
It was the perfect start for a season for me. I saw it as when I saw how the schedule was working out and how preseason was going to be shaping up. It was great that I could go out there and get 2 matches under my belt. Well, I know Nashville, we planned in that time to get probably 2 or 3 as well. And some things happened down in Florida, as they always do with us, it seems. So the fact that I was able to get some matches under my belt was great. And also just, I think, the confidence that comes from playing with your country and playing on the same field. Is when I look across, I'm at right back and left back to Alphonso Davies. I'm sharing the field with this guy. It only helps me mentally that, it's not necessarily saying that I've made it or anything. That's never going to be the case with me. I'm always, all right, what's the next obstacle? Boom, let's keep getting better every day. But it was one of those ones, it's like, I can look back now and go, when there is a day that's a little low or I have a bad game, it's not necessarily the end of the world. I can look back and go, I've now played for my country. I am at that level where I feel like, I deserve to be out there. And it's not necessarily like every single day when I was a rookie was a prove it moment. Don't get me wrong. It's still going to be a prove it moment this second year for me. But now it's more is that I have that self-belief as well that I really, truly belong out there. And that's a great feeling is that when you're in that group, and it was fun when I was playing with Richard Larrea at right back and seeing him work. And then him also just complimenting me back. He's like, man, like, I really like what you're doing here. I think that running's unbelievable, that pass you're seeing. And it's cool to know that these older guys who I look up to in the league and in these international leagues, that they go, yeah, Alistar's got something. He's a really nice player. Like, that's cool to hear from them too. And it's not necessarily building you up with like getting overconfident or anything, but it's more just, that feeling of belonging is something, especially a young player, that you do definitely cherish. And it's nice to hear it as well from guys like John Herdman and just from getting those games under my belt, is that getting that monkey off your back as well with your national team is always a nice feeling. Getting those first ones, especially being a part of a historic win, didn't hurt, and getting on the score sheet as well, which was fun. But no, it's the perfect start to a season, especially getting the legs under me, getting a solid 90 minutes over the 2 games, had me coming in feeling pretty confident into the preseason, and hopefully we're just going to keep that momentum going. And that all starts in a couple of days now. It's crazy how time's moving quick. It felt like the longest off season ever, but we're finally sneaking up on it now.
Alistar, last one for you, because I know we've got to get you to a little brother grudge match there. It's your and Jack's brother, right, in the Big Ten semifinal tonight? Nice. Yes. What's your confidence level like?
Yeah, we got Maryland versus Indiana. Oof. Confidence level, Maryland's one of the teams that they play a set style, I'd say. And I know my brother, they're a bunch of grinders, this Maryland team. And I'll tell you what, they have a bit of class to them. But this Indiana team is a known winning quantity. I know there's definitely some bragging rights on the line here. Jackson's nervous, though. Indiana's definitely the heavy favorite playing at home. But he always says, Maryland's always had that little bit of something. Maryland, Indiana, he's always said, we could be dominating, but all of a sudden Maryland wins this 1-0. So I'm excited, I'm all in on the Maryland train. Let's keep it going, Terps. It's crazy for me to say that as a Wake Forest alum, but I'm all in on the Terps. So we'll see. It should be a good one. It was a bummer. We were looking at potentially driving up for the match, but it didn't really work out with the timing and everything. But especially with the pandemic, can't really be at a college soccer game at this point. I mean, don't know how safe that is, but it'll be one that we'll be excited for, and I'm really hoping the Terps pull this one out because I think this would be great for my brother's morale, and just I know how hard that team's worked, and especially with all the complications and stuff, the trials and tribulations that this pandemic year has caused for all these college teams. I'll tell you what, it's been really difficult, and as hard as a rookie year was as a pro, I think I felt worse for all those seniors and kids that were in college soccer, really trying to get through a collegiate season while going through a pandemic was just a different level, and all the props to them. So we're hoping for a good game, and I think the Terps will sneak one out up there in Bloomington.
Well, you heard it here first. Alistar Johnston was the guest. You'll see him every weekend bombing up and down the right-hand side of the field. Alistar, thanks so much for joining us tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Hey, week 1 preview here on Speedway. Hey everybody, welcome back into Speedway Soccer. That was our chat yesterday with Alistar Johnston. Ben and I were lucky enough to sit down with him. I think some really, really good content, a lot of takeaways, some really positive stuff to look forward to this season. If there's a negative, I would say it's the fact that it seemed like our video feed was having a few issues there. So listen, we're kind of new to this dropping clips into Restream. We're kind of working to get better. Seems like that's happened 2 episodes in a row. So we're going to try to work out the kinks before we come back next week. So we appreciate your patience with us during that. Guys, real quick before we hop into FC Cincinnati preview specifically, a few lift outs there for me. I think the idea that Gary Smith is trying to get this team to be the MLS version of Atletico is like really, really awesome. Kind of what we talked about last week. To me, that's like everything you should want this team to be. No one in the world wants to play Atletico, especially no one wants to go to Atletico and play. If this team can be the MLS version of Atletico, they're going to be very successful for a very long time.
I think for me, it's interesting, just the idea that teams have kind of found Nashville out and kind of know what they're about, and they're less of a surprise team. I don't think they really surprised a ton of people for most of the season, but I definitely down the stretch, I think there was definitely an element of surprise. But I see his point when he was saying about just teams know what they're about this year. And you're going to have to go into every game knowing that there's just a lot more tape, and there aren't going to be a ton of surprises this year. So finding ways to break down teams and just be better with the ball. I think it's going to be interesting to see that progression, and I think it's kind of the progression that needed to happen anyway.
Yeah, and I think the other call out too that I found interesting, both after hearing this and then also the press conference earlier today with Lovitz was talking, them looking to both Lovitz and Alistar looking at ways that they can get more involved in the attack of an attacking fullback. So just any chance to see these guys some more overlapping runs, and I think that'll be an added dimension to this team.
Chris says he's heard from pundits that NSC plays like Atleti. They said it just the other day on the Extra Time MLS pre-show, which actually I think Chris got a shout out on that show. He's like OG getting questions.
He's hit the big time.
I know, right? He's going to be bigger than us before you know it, which is extremely small.
Hey, that's a low bar.
So yeah, that's really not much involved with that at all. That being said, the only other thing I'll say before we get into it, I think if you're an NSC fan, you listen to that interview, which you should have if you're an NSC fan. The idea that Rodrigo Pinheiro is a guy who was going to go at guys like 10 times out of 10, I'm like frothing at the mouth of the idea of him. Like, you know how I am. We've all watched a lot of soccer games together over the years. And I'm just the guy who wants the dude to skin the guy every single time. Knowing that Rodrigo is that type of dude, I think is pretty exciting. And it seemed like Alistar is excited to play with him on that side. My gut is we've got a little bit of Alex Moyle start the season and Rodrigo gets eased into that lineup. He doesn't have to get thrown in the same way Leal got thrown in last year.
And Gary did compare them and just saying that, hey, Leal took a little while. I mean, he's a great player, designated player, really good player, but there was an adaptation period. And then on top of that, Pinheiro has never played outside his home country when Leal had, and he's 3 years younger than Leal was last year. So, I mean, I think they're all super high on him, and I don't think anybody should panic if he's not in the starting lineup for the first couple of weeks. I think that's just it takes time to adapt.
Always the voice of reason, our Ben Wright. Always the voice of reason.
Sometimes.
But having a guy like Pinheiro off the bench too will go a long way, especially in these first couple games.
I mean, and the squad is just so much better now that you don't need a guy like Pinheiro to contribute off the bat. If Leal wasn't contributing,
that's the big point.
If Leal wasn't contributing from the start last year, they would have been in trouble. But this time, you just can afford a little bit more of an adaptation period with Pinheiro.
All right, look, let's get into it, guys, because we got about 12 minutes left or something like that. We've kind of touched on it here. In our opinion, what is the best starting 11 for Nashville Soccer Club going into the season? And let's flavor in a little bit of this. The injury report just came out, like literally as the Alistar Johnston interview was airing. So we know a little bit more about what this team will look like on Saturday. Ben, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so we have Daniel Rios and Dom Baji out with a right foot injury and a left adductor injury, respectively, and then Abu Dunladi is questionable with a left hamstring. I don't think it's a huge surprise if you've been following preseason just how uninvolved Rios had been in the 2 games. But you kind of hoped that in the couple weeks since their last game he would be healthy. But I mean, if you look at the lineup graphic we have up, I still think with everybody healthy, this is. At least the 11 starting is as close to as you can get to first choice 11 right now.
And Ben, real quick, I'll just add with that. To me, I'm more surprised that Cadiz isn't questionable or anything because he hadn't put in any minutes either. I was more concerned both of those guys are going to be either questionable out, and the fact that Cadiz is a totally clean bill of health. Now, we don't know about match fitness.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We've got to watch that. But the fact that he's not on the injury report to me is a very good sign.
I would almost err towards having Sapong start, which saying err towards makes it seem like it's a downgrade, and I think he's a perfectly fine MLS starter. But yeah, I mean, we at least know that he's played some in preseason, and we don't have that for Cadiz. But it's really just it's a question mark at this point. We don't really know what we're talking about, and we won't know until we see the lineup tomorrow. I think getting that lineup is going to answer a lot of questions about where the squad stands.
Yeah, and I know we've gone back and forth about, us 3 talking, and but like not on the here, but talking about who starts up top, and with Sapong maybe having some more match fitness. But I think I err a little more to Cadiz is going to be the one that start because there's been such limited preseason minutes. If you're going to put this team out there, Cadiz has played with Leal and Mukhtar and Moyle. He's played with this group, and so he's going to come in. And with the limited amount of preseason, I think having familiarity as a group is going to be pretty important.
I mean, and let's just throw it out there too. I mean, he has 10 games before his loan expires, and I really think it's close to a done deal that he stays. I don't think they would have brought him on loan if they weren't pretty sure that he's the guy. But I think they're at the same time.
Hashtag can't confirm.
No, but I'm not ready for that.
Sources say.
I think at the same time, though, I mean, they're going to want to get him out and play every available minute before they have to pony up and pay the cash.
I think just the fact that we're having this conversation and we're not like pretty pissed off that Rios or Cadiz is hurt, and then it's going to be another kind of guy who's not necessarily an out-and-out number 9, shows you how much better this team is going to be this year than last year. CJ Sapong is an elite goal scorer at different times in his career in MLS. The fact that he comes into this roster and we're saying, hey, you know what, we'll probably be okay if he starts. as opposed to Yonder Cadiz, to me is really, really good.
I mean, getting 30 and 60 from
Either
whatever
one.
combination of Cadiz and and Sapong is better than you had for pretty much 2/3 of the season last year. I mean, so
Exactly.
you're already starting out in a much stronger position than you did in 2020.
Now, here's my question: with Rios being on the bench, with Rios not being on the bench, what does that make the bench look like instead? I think we feel pretty confident that Hendwala, Buana, Pinheiro are going to be there on the wings. Dunladi, we would assume, is out. Baggio, we know, is out. Is it Luke Hawkinson immediately in? Does Matt LaGrassa have a place in there somewhere? We saw him get minutes last year. What are we thinking?
I think Hawkinson he's been name dropped several times by Gary Smith and Mike Jacobs, and I think they're high on him. I'm not sure if they want to throw him in the deep end, but we kind of saw that with Allen Wynn last year, that Gary just kind of tested him out in the first match. So I think he has that going for him. I would almost expect to see like an Eric Miller or a Dylan Nealis on the bench. That way you have a right back, a center back, and a left back, and we know that Gary likes balance. I think that's kind of where I'd lean, but Hawkinson is an interesting one for sure.
All right, guys. We know that Rios is out. We've talked a little bit about Sapong and Cadiz. Sorry. My question for you right now is, does anyone have any expectation of Rodrigo Pinheiro starting this matchup this weekend?
I'd be very surprised.
I have zero expectation going in. I mean, it would be I would be shocked if he starts.
Honestly, I would be less surprised if he didn't get any minutes than I would be if he started. That's kind of my gut going into it. I think it could be one where we're up 1-0. He doesn't even come onto the field. But I hope it's pretty close and it's tight, and maybe he gets on and we see something from him. I have high expectations for this guy. He's in on that U22 DP slot. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how he is as a player this year. I think it's going to take a little bit. And look, I don't think it's unfair to say that I was probably backing Alex Moyle more than anyone else on this pod last year, right? Like I'm like an Alex Moyle guy, and I think Alex Moyle's a Gary guy. So I think it's going to be pretty hard to bump him out of that starting spot, and it's going to take Pinheiro really, really proving to Gary, not just can you get forward, not just can you take guys on, but can you do the work going back?
I mean, and from the limited info we've got out of preseason, Alex Moyle has supposedly been one of the better performers. I mean, so he's already a guy who fits in the system really well. And then if he's in good form, I think he's hard to knock out of the lineup.
You heard it here first. Davey Shepard's football coach lock of the week. Alex,
come on, dude. Lock of the week. Chris Hole agrees with me. Hey, listen, I'm going to be dead serious. I didn't mean to say that twice. We did things like 8 hours apart, okay? We did them like 8 hours apart. I didn't mean to say it back to back.
Davey went full Uncle Rico.
The guys have been calling me Coach Shepard in the chat since then. So, look, it was an accident that I said it twice. We're not going to mention it for a little while, but if you need help with your kid making like a little league roster or something, I can coach them up, okay? I can get them where they need to be. I'll elevate that level. All right, guys, listen, real quick, let's put a pin in it with this. Predictions, let's not set goals. Does anybody have a Nashville SC not getting all 3 points to start this season in what we view as a pretty easy start to the schedule where we should get into the Open Cup and we need to take advantage of points for the league standings because we have a really tough run in at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I have them taking all 3 points, and I think that today in the press conference, you know, Dax and Dan both called out the fact that they are targeting making the Open Cup, so it's at the top of their mind. I'll throw in some betting tips, or not tips, just some good odds right now. Nashville to win, let's score under 2.5 goals with over 6.5 corners is at plus 340. Would not be surprised to see something like that.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I've been a little bit interested in just kind of how players have talked about this offseason and saying it seems like they're coming into the season with a bit of a chip on the shoulder and feeling like they were kind of hard done by to get out of MLS. The playoffs, like they did. I mean, they obviously took Columbus to extra time, but it feels like they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder and kind of a point to prove right off the bat. And I know Cincinnati signed a lot of pretty high profile players. And I really do think that they're going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. But I just have trouble seeing a team like that's kind of in a lot of turnover coming out and beating a team like Nashville, who is excellent at home. I just don't see it happening. I think Nashville's going to take all three.
Here's my thing. I agree with you, Ben. I think Cincinnati is going to be better. But my issue is that it takes a while to get better, and it takes like actual games to get better and not just the preseason. So while I think in 6-7 games, they might be a pretty tough team and might grab a result against Nashville at home later in the year, I just personally don't see it happening this weekend. And in fact, I don't even think this is going to be like vintage Gary Smith 1-0-2-1. I think it's just going to be a workmanlike, never in doubt, pretty convincing result, 2-0, something like that. Nashville's going to do well. Expect to see a lot out of Leal. He looked really, really good when he played for Costa Rica. We've seen Mukhtar in limited performances look good. Whether whoever starts up top, I trust both of those guys to influence the game a lot. And I don't think anybody on this podcast right now has any doubt about the back four, the two guys starting in midfield, right? So to me, they've got a really, really good shot. And you just got to take care of business if you're Nashville Soccer Club, because these points are going to matter come playoff time, positioning-wise. The season, the schedule is easy to start the season. It gets really hard towards the end. So it's almost like they've got to be ultra-professional right off the bat. And I think this club realizes that, and I think they're going to take advantage of it. Guys, anything else? Chris Hull, wait, is Davey a defensive coach? Chris, listen, don't take liberties out there, bro, okay? We will ban you so fast for commenting in this chat, all right?
Chris is probably the one person watching right now. You really don't want to do that.
Chris, you want to come on the next podcast? Seriously, bro, we'll get you in here, man. I don't need to be here, to be totally honest with you. I just talk better than the other two mostly, so that's why they keep me around.
He talks good.
No, listen. Yeah, I talk real good. Guys, this was great. Shout out to Alistar Johnston for coming on and chatting with us. You can call me Al. That's going to be the name of the podcast when you go download it tomorrow morning. Listen to it again, Chris. Just soak this stuff in. We're dropping knowledge left and right. Tyler Snipes, seriously, go follow him on Twitter, @SnipesTyler. He's a hilarious follow. Really, really sharp. He did himself a disservice saying he's not an expert. Really, really good content covering Nashville Soccer Club. We're super appreciative of him coming on as well. Friday, we got a few pieces coming out. Preview piece will come out. Listen, hold your breath out there. The return of 3 Things I Love, 3 Things I Hate by Davey Shepard, COVID-19 edition. And
one piece. Actually, no, you've written 2 pieces this year.
He does one.
I'm already over my quota. Okay,
yeah,
I've written my 2 pieces for the year.
Just
he
to
does
pull
one
back the
per
curtain.
World Cup cycle.
Yeah, just to pull back the curtain. Earlier this year, we've been on Broadway for a year now, and Davey had asked the question. He said, "How do I log in to write a piece?" So
that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yes. But we'll see how long this 3 Things I Like, 3 Things I Hate. What are we going to say?
Hey, Wes took care of me. He got me logged in, bro. So listen, we're ready to go. Actually, I'm still emailing my pieces to Ben, and he posts them on my behalf. But I could if I had to do it. Okay.
I'll have the preview out tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, preview tomorrow afternoon. 3 Things I Love, 3 Things I Hate. And then Saturday's the day. Go out, have a day. Listen, I know a lot of you out there have had your vaccines. Be safe, be smart, do the right things. They're asking people not to tailgate. Listen, this is a huge, important piece. As of Saturday, the parking lots and the entire stadium is a cashless enterprise. It's card only. Don't come expecting to pay cash. That's going to matter on Saturday. Go out and have a good time. Be safe. We're back. It's like 30,000 people in the stadium. It's not 60 like it was last year to start the year out, but it's going to be a great time. And this team has a chance to be really, really good this year. Get it off to a good start. You do your part. Get out there and support the team. Guys, any parting thoughts before we head out?
I am just ready to watch soccer again.
Can't wait.
Yeah, ready for some MLS.
We appreciate it. Tomorrow, check it out. Get your podcast. We'll be back next week with Nashville Soccer Show. We'll be back next week with Eurovision, and then we'll be back next week later in the week with another preview episode as well. Looking forward to the game against that's Montreal, right? Yeah,
Montreal.
looking forward to Montreal.
Club
de Foot. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about the rebrand. Seriously, we appreciate you guys every single week for listening. We've been doing this for going on 3.5 years now. We love doing it, and we like doing it because you guys have a good time with us. We'll be back again soon. This is Speedway Soccer. We'll see you in a few days.